Hello everyone, I am back. And let me show you what we've been up to. All right, so besides doing the doors, sanding them, we decided to try some tinted epoxy over it. And it came out pretty good. We've got some spots that are having some issues, but I'd say it's 95, 97%. The way we want, we'll fix those issues. But the other thing we did is we created a spoiler, lower spoiler for the Grand Sport. And we decided to try our hand at forged carbon fiber. So what that is, it's carbon fiber that is cut into little bitty pieces and you basically spread it around. So what we did was we first spread tinted epoxy on this, got some red metallic tint, put it in there, it's powder. In fact, I'll show it to you now. And again, this was just an experiment. It's a pearl red. If I open it up, it is a powder. We used a tablespoon to a cup and a half of epoxy. So it doesn't take much. On another piece, I cut it in half, used half as much, and it doesn't really have the red, dynamic red tint. Let me show you that piece, just so you'll see. This one, I used half as much of the red tint, and it still has the red in there, but it's not nearly as dynamic looking as twice as much. But we wanted to see. And these are all experimental pieces. So that's what we did. So we did 2 pieces of carbon fiber with just the regular epoxy. Then we put the tinted red epoxy over the whole piece. Then we spread the little carbon fiber pieces on it. And then we put more epoxy on it to soak the carbon fiber in and give it a coat on top. After that, we put peal ply. Now, those of you that aren't familiar with peal ply, it is a silk-like material. It has a weave to it. And so we put it on there, and what it did was it allowed us to smooth the surface out as best as we could. Obviously, being little pieces, it wasn't very smooth, so we went ahead and smoothed everything out as best we could. Peal ply comes in different versions. This one is treated with a release coating, so it makes it easier to pull off, but by no stretch does it make it easy to pull off, so let me warn you about that. But what it does is it soaks up the excess resin. Now ideally, I really would rather have the excess resin on there so then we could sand and make sure we don't hit the carbon fiber, but then we couldn't level out the surface, so you're kind of stuck with one or the other. We decided to try it this way. One of the other reasons it was hard to get the carbon fiber to wrap around this nose edge, and so by putting the peal ply on there, we were able to wrap it around and under and get the carbon fiber to make this curve. Okay, so let me show you, I'm not going to pull all of this off, but I'm just going to show you what it's like to pull the peal ply off, and it does tear. But like I said, it is not easy to pull off. This is supposed to be easier to pull off. I couldn't imagine the more difficult stuff. How difficult it is to pull off. And when you put the peal ply on, make sure you leave some excess at the edge so that you can grab it and get it started. Otherwise, I don't know how you would get it off if you didn't have something at the edge to grab hold of. The other thing is it does not have to be one solid piece. It works just as well to overlap them, and in fact, you can avoid air bubbles. If you see an air bubble in the peal ply, you will see the air bubble in the part. I learned that the hard way. So if you see an air bubble, don't dismiss it. If there's any way you can fix it in the peal ply, do so. You also can cut relief areas to help it bend if it doesn't want to bend or make compound curves. Okay, so let me And obviously, when you pull it off, you want to kind of strategically pull it off. Oh, and off camera before this, I went in and trimmed all the edges. If you don't do that, carbon fiber is going to leave some needle-like pieces sticking out, and it will stab you, and it does hurt. It literally feels like you got stabbed. Okay, so when you pull the peel ply off, it's going to leave little strands here and there. They'll be sanded off, so it's not a big deal. All right, let me get a little pulled off here. Sometimes when you get it going, it comes right off. Other times, not so much. Well, there we go. Like I said, it is not easy to peel off. There we go. And once you get it to where it's a nice edge, it feels easier. It's just getting it started and getting to that point. So around this corner is going to be difficult. I sometimes use pliers so I can get better grip. There we go. See, sometimes it just pretty much comes off. And so here's where they overlapped. So this edge right here is going to be very hard to get a hold of because there's no overlap. Luckily, there was some overlap here. And then it's overlap down here. And if you don't have a strong grip, you're going to want to use pliers. So there's what it looks like. There's what it looks like without soaking in, and there's what it looks like soaked in. So there's a piece right here I can see the edge got buried, but as I'm pulling up this, it's giving me something that I'll be able to grab onto when I get there. Otherwise, again, I would never get it off. Now, it's not a big deal if you can't get it off. You can sand through it. It's just something else to sand through. And as you saw, sometimes you have to try multiple areas before you can find a spot to get it started. Okay, so like I said, I see there where there's an edge. Whoops. Now, it has these red stripes in here, which if your part is any color but red, you can tell because when you get it pulled off, it has the same texture as it did with the peel ply on. And the red stripes let you know, oh, there's still peel ply there, whereas in this case we have a red part. I can't tell right here whether that's peel ply here or the fiberglass, or I'm sorry, epoxy. Carbon fiber. But it doesn't matter, it all has to be sanded through. Now the air bubbles I was talking about, it's unfortunate, but we got some here. So you can see right here, I saw that there was an air pocket, but I just could not get rid of it. So I'm going to have to touch that area up. That's going to be very difficult to touch it up and get it to match color. I should have been a little more careful. Same thing with this edge right here. The peel ply didn't wrap around, and so this area right here didn't get covered evenly. But again, it can all be fixed. It's just with the tint, it's a little harder to fix. If it was clear, it wouldn't be as big of a deal. All right, so this area right here is actually where it bolts to the bottom of the car. So I'm going to do this area real quick. It's going to take hours to do this. And so rather than have you watch me sand for hours, I'm going to do a small area so you can see what it's going to look like. So, I get my sander here, and I'm going to start with 60 grit. And the whole idea is the peel ply leaves the same texture. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's like a silk-like texture. Obviously, that's not going to leave the gloss. Oh, and I don't know if you can see this. This is basically the pattern that we ended up with. And so you can see all the little carbon fiber pieces and then the red epoxy in there. So it's going to look just like this, except it's going to be shiny. Or that's the hope. All right, so start my sander. This is going to be noisy. Maybe we can figure out how to speed up the video so you're not watching me sand a whole lot. I don't know how to do that. So I'm just going to sand this small area right here, try to get it a little bit flatter. And I'm going to go through progressive coarse sandpaper. This is, I believe, 60 grit. Next, I have 180 grit, 240 grit, and then 320 grit. And then I'll polish it after that. I actually have some 400 grit I might use. Haven't decided yet. We'll see how that works. All right, the other thing is, I've been told I'm supposed to tell you, wear a mask when you do this stuff. Do as I say, not as I do. Okay, so Jack's theory on sanding is the first grit that I use is the roughest grit that I think I can use without putting permanent scratches in the part. So the way this works is I picked 60 grit because I figured that was the coarsest I could use and not put scratches in that I can get out later. I obviously have other more coarse grits. I have 40 grit, 36 grit, but I'm afraid they would leave some deep scratches that I would spend a lot of time trying to get out. So the goal of this first is to get the surface flat. So basically, all I can do is I can sand off the high spots to get them even with the low spots. I'm not quite there. I can still feel a little bit of surface texture here, but in the interest of time and you not watching me sand a whole lot more, I'm just going to go ahead and stop here. So when I'm done, you'll see some bumps in the surface that I will go back and redo this whole process. Okay, so I'm through with the 60 grit. And the next grit is 180 grit. I use this hook and loop, and this is a Win sander I got off of Amazon. I'll put the link to it. I found out it's a good combination between price and how well it does. I've gotten some of the Walmart ones, they're okay. I end up killing these things, so to me it's a disposable commodity. Air tools would be better, but my air compressor's broken and I don't want to mess with getting it fixed, so I'm just going to use electric tools and just throw them away. These are 20 bucks. The ones at Walmart are 25. I got some at Harbor Freight for $9.99 on sale, so the price varies. But if you're using these, you will kill them. They don't have a long lifespan. So along that lines, if they offer you a lifetime warranty or whatever, I suggest you get it because, like I said, you're going to kill them. Okay, so now I'm going to go with the 180. Oh, let me show you what I got. So this is what it looks like. I could clean this off with alcohol or something to get the sanding dust off, but it's got sanded, and I can see where I sanded through into some of the carbon fiber. I knew that was going to happen. The only way around that would be to put an entire layer of epoxy on top of this and build it up so much that I know when I sand, I'm only sanding epoxy. But in this area, we wanted to try it and see if we can skip that step. If this doesn't work, again, this is an inconspicuous area. If it doesn't work, we'll do it the other way. We did find out if you have a patterned carbon fiber, the typical cross hatch or herringbone pattern, if you sand through the epoxy into the carbon fiber, it will change the way the carbon fiber reflects light and that spot will show up forever. There's nothing you can do about it. So if this was a patterned carbon fiber, I would have put another layer of epoxy on top of it before I sanded. I'm going to see if it matters. I don't think, the whole idea of this is it does have different reflection of the light, so I don't think it'll hurt anything. Okay, so now with the 180. You can use other things if you want. Sometimes I use a brush. I tried to set everything up that I was going to use. I didn't think about cleaning this in between. Let me go ahead and do that because I think you'll be able to better see what I've got. And you can wet sand this if you want to. Wet sanding makes it a little smoother, but it also takes a little longer. I'm dry sanding, but I'm interested in getting this done as quickly as possible. Yeah, this is water. You have water or alcohol. All right, so. Now the good thing about wetting this down is the rule of thumb is whatever you see when it's wet is pretty much what you're going to see when it's done. Because the water fills in all the low spots, the scratches. Now it is not smooth, it's not done by any stretch, but now you can see it's starting to look like it would look like when we're done. So there's a lot of steps to get it to this stage in real life, but right now it looks pretty good. I still see the pattern of the peel ply over here and in some other areas, but I'm hoping that as I sand, I'll get through those. Ideally, I should have sanded with the rougher sandpaper to get rid of all of the texture of the peel ply. But again, I'm just trying to give you an idea. And you can also see it's not smooth. There's a ridge right there. If you have wrinkles in the peel ply, it'll make wrinkles in your part. The other thing is I want to look at how deep you can sand and not mess up your carbon fiber pattern. So if I sanded real deep and got this absolutely flat, perfect, smooth, I'm afraid I might mess up the pattern. So I'm trying to, without doing that, see if I can get it to look good. All right, that was my 180 grit. Now we're going to go to 240 grit. All right. advantages of wiping it down is it's easier to see what you're hitting with the new sanding area. And some of the low spots are easier to see. If you don't wipe it down, it all has that dusty look to it. And so it looks like you're doing better than you actually are. And because this is turning black, you can see that I am sanding into the carbon fiber. Like I said, I want to see what that does. And so this is our first experiment in carbon fiber, and I already learned something important in this experiment. And that is, we have the carbon fiber, the pattern carbon fiber underneath. You can see where I sanded through the forged carbon fiber. So we didn't put enough on, and it's on this edge right here. Hopefully we don't run into that crossway. Again, we thought it wouldn't matter, but now that I see it, I can see the parts that did not get carbon fiber, the forged carbon fiber on them. All right, and again, it's still a little bit rough. It's got some low areas, but again, for this area, it doesn't matter. The other thing is you can put another layer of epoxy or clear polyurethane paint on it, and that'll cover up some of those low spots. All right, so now you can see we're seeing some of that exposed carbon fiber, and actually it doesn't hurt that you can see it because it actually reflects the light a little bit more than the pieces that are buried underneath the candy red. Okay, now move on to the next one, which is 320. Unfortunately, my neighbor listens to his stereo very loud, debating whether to ask him to turn it down because it's not my choice in music. of the 320. Same look, it's just a little bit cleaner, a little bit smoother. All right, so now I'm gonna polish it. Now again, I'm rushing this. I wouldn't normally do it at this stage, but I'm doing this to help you see quickly what it's going to look like. And again, this is our first time. We may say, oh, we screwed up royally, we shouldn't have done it that way. But the only way to learn, to me, is to try it, see what comes out. Okay, so as far as polishing goes, I just get whatever's cheap. There are people that do this for a living have a preference. I don't do this for a living, so I don't have a preference. So I just got this turtle wax polishing compound and rubbing compound. So the rubbing is rougher, and so it takes off material quicker, and then the polishing compound is finer, and it makes it polish. After the polishing and rubbing, you would typically use wax, but I'm not going to do that in this case because we've got the whole other surface to do. And once you get wax on a surface, it's really difficult to get off. It causes horrible issues as far as when you try to put more epoxy or paint on the surface. And unfortunately, we had that happen with the doors. There were a couple spots that looked like it must still have wax on it, even though I went through and used 5 different products to try to get rid of it. Obviously, I missed either the spots or the products. Okay, so this is a kind of a cream. So I just take it, spread it out. And the only reason I spread it out is because when you hit it with this, if you don't spread it out, it splatters it everywhere. And again, this is another win. I got it off of Amazon. It's a, what is it, 6-inch random orpid waxer and polisher. Model 6010. I'll give a link to it. One of the things I want to be careful of is to not go over the edge and catch it on these pieces that stick out. If I really wanted to, I would smooth all those edges out. Be careful when you set your polishers and stuff down that you don't set them down in an area that's going to pick up grit, because then you'll put scratches in there, which the whole point of the polishing is to get rid of the scratches. All right. So again, this is not at a finished level. And what's happening now is the surface roughness is really starting, or unevenness is really starting to show. I'm going to show you right back here. So you can see now it's a little bit brighter. It's not quite polished, but it is a little bit. And so you can see the variation in color, the way it looks. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and hit, that was the rubbing compound. Now I'm going to hit it with the polishing compound. But what you can see here is there was a little wrinkle in the peel ply, and it shows up in the part. There's where that wrinkle was. There's where another wrinkle was. So again, the smoother you can get that peel ply, the better. The other thing is, if you look, there's where I sanded through, and you can see the regular carbon fiber pattern underneath where the forged carbon fiber is. So we should have put a little more, put it a little heavier right here. But again, we're spreading it by hand, and it is tedious and a little bit difficult to get it spread evenly. We did it in a time-lapse video, and of course it looks like it took seconds to do this. It took probably an hour to get us to get the carbon fiber spread on here and the epoxy over it, both under it and over it. All right, so the next one is, what is this one? This one is the polishing compound. This is, oh, I think I used the wrong stuff. No, maybe not. Doesn't matter. Same thing. A little bit on it. And the difference is the grit. This is the finer grit than the other one. All right. And we'll hit this real quick. And again, if I was doing this on this area, I would spend a lot more time in each one of these steps. So again, if I was doing this quote in real life, I would spend a lot more time on this. This is just a quick example. And again, it's the first try at doing this. So what I learned? Well, I learned a couple of things. One, I would put another layer of epoxy on top of this. The reason why is I am down to as thin as I can go in some of these areas, but I still, if I look, I see the texture of the peel ply in these low areas. If I put another layer of epoxy, it will fill in that texture and it would smooth all of this out, and this would be a really glossy finish on top of this. If I sand it much more, I'm going to start sanding off a lot of the carbon fiber pieces, which I don't want to do. The other thing is you can see the areas where I sanded through, it's not red anymore because we didn't use the red tint on the regular carbon fiber. That's another lesson learned. If you're going to tint it, go ahead and tint the lower layers as well, so that if you do have a spot that comes through, it won't be just the plain black carbon fiber showing through and then your multicolors everywhere that you didn't sand through. Final thing is, this is an edge. You have to be really, really careful on the edges when you're sanding or polishing or doing anything. It's much easier to accidentally sand through on the edges. So you're best to completely avoid the edges. I've seen people put tape on the edges, you know, like a piece of 3/4 inch masking tape all along here, and then they'll get all of the rest of it polished and sanded like they want, and then they'll come back and do the edges in a separate step. All right, that's pretty much all I've got right now. Like I said, I think what we're going to do is clean this up and do exactly that, put another layer of epoxy on it. I don't know if we're going to use tinted epoxy or clear. I will probably use tinted just because of these areas where I sanded through. I would rather have them red with the standard carbon fiber showing underneath than to be black. So that'll help cover up some of these areas. Oh, and that's another thing I learned. Put a little more of the carbon fiber, the forged carbon fiber on. It's difficult to do, so spend a little more time, be a little more tedious in putting it down, and that'll help you avoid sanding through the edges. The other thing is where the air bubbles are. You can see right here, I think, there's low spots, there's air bubbles. We're going to have to fill those in, but the better you do with the peel ply, you can see these air bubbles. We saw them and we just worked it as best as we could. There were some spots we couldn't get. What you might try is taking a needle with some epoxy in it already mixed up and injecting it into those air pockets. If you can't work them out any other way, that would be a last resort. All right, so it's not perfect, but I think it's pretty good. We picked this part for a reason, because it's down at the ground, and so for people to see minor defects, they're literally going to have to get down on their hands and knees to see it. I don't think you'll be able to see it if you're standing up and this is down at the bottom of the car. And again, this area won't even show, but I think we're going to find some of the same issues here. But by going ahead and, like I said, putting another coat of tinted epoxy on top of this, we'll end up getting this polished finish without ever going through and getting down to the carbon fiber underneath. Because when we were doing this, we did not see any of the bare carbon fiber. So what must have happened is there was just enough to cover it, and I ended up sanding through it, my fault. All right, so that's it. Hope you liked it. Go ahead and like, subscribe, hit the alert, share this so we can grow the community here. If you have any questions, ask some questions. We're not through. We've got a lot more to do, and so if you ask some questions about how to do something or how we would do something, it's going to be no problem at all to go ahead and try it. We're in the experiment stage. Once we get past this, we won't hopefully be in experiment stage anymore. We'll actually be doing this stuff for real. But I'm very pleased with the results, especially for my first effort. This is good enough that when we go ahead and put the next layer of epoxy on it and polish it out, I'm done. I am not going to redo this. If you look, probably in the future, the comments from the other groups, there's always people on the internet that are going to criticize this. But I think if you did this at home, just followed what I did, again, this is my way of doing it, I think you'll be really happy with results. All right, thanks a lot. And as always, if you don't like what I'm doing, you don't know Jack. Bye.